Okay, hello again, everyone, and welcome to the June edition of Dragon Troll's webinar series. I'm Sienna Peroulis-Cook, Dragon Troll's Director of Marketing and Communications, and your webinar presenter for today. Today is all about the Chinese digital landscape, particularly in the context of tourism and tourism marketing. The aim for the session is to bring you up to date with current Chinese social media trends and updates and how Chinese travelers are using digital tools to navigate their overseas trips, alongside concrete and actionable suggestions for using social media and other digital channels to attract more Chinese visitors. We'll start with an overview of the Chinese digital landscape, including some of the leading trends impacting social media and travel marketing in China today. Then we'll go on the Chinese travelers' digital journey with extensive consumer survey data to show us how Chinese travelers are using social media and other digital tools from the inspiration and information gathering stages to booking, in-destination tools, and sharing the travel experience online. Next, I'll introduce the must-know Chinese digital platforms and tools for outbound travel, alongside examples and suggestions for how these can best be used by overseas tourism brands. Finally, we'll look at recent developments in artificial intelligence in China and how this is impacting travel marketing. The webinar is a little bit of a long one today since there is a lot of content to cover. I expect the presentation should last for around 45 to 50 minutes. After that, we will still have a few minutes left over for a short Q&A session, and you can feel free to send in questions at any point during the webinar by using the Q&A button on your Zoom control panel, and I'll answer as many as I can at the end. If you can't stay for the whole session for whatever reason, don't worry, we will be recording it and contacting all attendees later today to share a link of the recording of the webinar as well as the webinar slides. So you'll receive all of the presentation materials to review later on. So just a very quick introduction to Dragon Trail International for any of you who might not know us and be attending a webinar for the first time today. Dragon Trail is a marketing solutions company headquartered in Beijing, and since our founding in 2009, we have focused on marketing for Chinese outbound tourism, working with destinations, hotels, airlines, retailers, attractions, and other travel brands and businesses around the world to help them reach Chinese consumers and the Chinese travel trade. Our services include B2B and B2C digital marketing and content creation, including, of course, social media management, alongside virtual, hybrid, and offline events, research and strategy consulting, and market representation services. You can find lots more information about all of our services, case studies of our work, and lots of other free resources on Chinese travel and marketing on our website, www.dragontrail.com. So now let's turn to the Chinese digital landscape. I imagine that most of you have some experience already with Chinese digital marketing, so I'm not going to spend too long on the basics, but just in case anyone is very new to this topic, the essential thing to understand is that the Chinese digital landscape is very different to that of the rest of the world. Facebook, Google, Instagram, and YouTube are all blocked in China. Expedia barely has a market share. And instead, there's a whole collection of Chinese OTAs, social media platforms, travel websites, and more. Now, at this point, I'm not going to go through all of the apps and websites on this list, since we will be looking at most of them in quite a lot of detail later on in the presentation. But this is really just to prepare an essential list for you, as well as a link to an online glossary so that you have this for future reference when I send out the webinar presentation slides later today. So basically, the most important apps to know are WeChat, Weibo, and RedNote, which is known as Xiaohongshu in China. And I will be introducing each of these as well as quite a few of the other apps on this list in part 3 of the webinar. So now I'd like to look specifically at a few of the biggest digital trends in China over the past couple of years and how they affect tourism marketing. So the first is the rise of social media platforms as search engines. Instead of Google, which is blocked in China, or Baidu, which is China's answer to Google and not a great search engine, to be honest, Chinese consumers are now using RedNote or WeChat as their main search engines to look for travel and brand information. There are around 600 million searches a day each on WeChat and on RedNote. And I have an example here of a slide on the slide showing the suggestions that come up when you type in "take your kids" into RedNote, starting with which countries are good for traveling abroad with kids, with 3 million posts. So social media is where Chinese travelers will be looking for useful, practical information, both before and during their trips. And this is why it's so important that marketing content emphasizes information rather than just beautiful photos and inspiration. Something else that's interesting and impacts marketing strategies is the algorithms used by RedNote and by Douyin, which is the original Chinese version of TikTok. These algorithms suggest content for users' feeds based on their interests rather than just showing them accounts that they follow or accounts with large follower bases. On both platforms, any piece of content is first served to a small group of people, so that's guaranteed basic traffic. Then, depending on how the content performs within that small group, it's then served to larger and larger audiences. So the result is that the post content is actually more important than who posts it. And a post by a small account could go viral with the right content and engagements from users. This then impacts marketers who may choose to work with a larger pool of amateur KOCs or key opinion consumers who make great content with smaller follower bases rather than working with more expensive KOLs or celebrities with larger follower numbers. Speaking of, let me just check. Oh, I hear that there's a problem with the sound. Um, I'm not, I'm very sorry. I'm not quite sure what to do to solve that because, oh, someone else says they can hear fine. Okay, seems to be getting better. That's good. Hopefully that was just a temporary thing. The internet connection should be all right. But if there are problems in the future, let me know. The worst case scenario, I could try to disconnect and reconnect. Great. Thank you. Thank you all for letting me know. So I'll continue now and hope that we don't run into more problems. Thanks. So influencers. This is something that we highly recommend, as Dragon Trail's consumer research has shown that influencer content has a much bigger impact on destination choice than content from official tourism board or embassy channels. And influencers are able to share content across more social media platforms than a brand will typically be able to do because they're present on all of those channels already and have followers there. So but destinations and brands will have different objectives for their influencer marketing, from targeting niche demographics to growing their overall brand awareness. So the approaches to influencer marketing will vary from brand to brand. Since the Chinese outbound tourism market is very diverse, brands will want to optimize their marketing by targeting the right segments and demographics to match their products or destination. And this also means choosing influencers that will be the most effective in reaching those markets, such as silver travelers or family travelers, for example. Another major trend in Chinese outbound travel now is the exploration of niche interests through travel, with a move away from generic group tours and towards very personalized, customized itineraries. By working with niche influencers who focus on very specific topics, so piano music or astronomy, for instance, you can tap into this trend and also access followers who are more engaged and stickier. Some influencers are now also known as KOSs, or key opinion sales, and they specialize in selling travel products directly to their followers. Working with this kind of influencer can be a good choice for a travel business, such as a hotel or a cruise line. A big trend on Chinese social media now is a new emphasis on authenticity. So real people doing real things with real practical suggestions. This ties into the importance of user-generated content, or UGC, which makes up 90% of the content on RedNote. Chinese social media users are also becoming tired of perfect, unattainable aesthetics, and increasingly they're drawn to raw, authentic, anti-polished content. One way that brands are creating more authentic and more cost-effective marketing content is by using their employees. For example, AirAsia received high engagement on RedNote in 2024 for short videos about their cabin crew's daily lives. These short videos were filmed by the crew using their own phones, and they felt more intimate to the audience than professionally shot content, helping to create a friendly image for the airline. In the retail sphere, individual branches of a large chain brand may be encouraged to open their own social media accounts. The number of followers of each of these accounts will, of course, be smaller than for the main brand account, but together the numbers can add up, and the posts are more localized and they feel more authentic coming from just one shop, and therefore they can receive higher engagement rates. The decision by brands to work with amateur key opinion consumers, in addition to professional KOLs, key opinion leaders, is similar to the individual shop branches running their own social media accounts. The reach of the KOC is smaller than that of the KOL, but the results can actually be better because the audience is more targeted and engaged, and the content is perceived as more authentic. The push for authentic content is also related to the success we've seen during the past year with content that is seen as low effort, designed to appear raw, spontaneous, and highly relatable. Rather than relying on polished destination advertisements, in 2025, AirAsia shared viral memes that are popular in China, such as a dancing penguin joking about creative burnout, or a monkey sticker talking about overspending while traveling. You can see examples of those on the screen here. Both of these were deeply rooted in Chinese internet slang and visual culture, and the two posts collectively generated more than 10,000 engagements, largely because AirAsia departed from traditional corporate formality and instead adopted a tone resembling that of a Gen Z friend. We've also seen this trend in our own management of Visit Scotland's RedNote account. At the end of last year, one video that performed especially well was just a short clip showing cute Christmas lights on a Scottish street. A video of New Year's Eve fireworks in Edinburgh, which looked like a totally unprofessional video shot on somebody's phone, received thousands of likes. The accompanying text for the post was written in colloquial conversational language, which made it feel intimate and like authentic travel sharing rather than official promotion. So now let's move on to the Chinese traveler's social media journey. This illustration provides an overview of the full digital journey, and there are three main things to really take away from it. First, the Chinese traveler will be using totally Chinese social media platforms and apps for the whole journey. There's some possibility that an experienced international traveler might be using Instagram or TripAdvisor, but this will be in addition to the Chinese apps and not instead of them. Second, you can see from the icons here that more than half of the icons are actually all from the WeChat ecosystem. So it's just one app, but WeChat includes so many different functions that are all used at different stages of the journey, including search, payment, mini programs, social sharing, and private chat. And third, you can also see from the icons that there are other Chinese apps that are now featured for every part or almost every part of the journey. These apps are now trying to compete with WeChat and with the OTAs like Ctrip by adding more functionalities like travel bookings to keep users in the app for longer and get them to spend more money there as well. So what we're going to do now is take a more detailed look at each stage of the Chinese traveler's digital journey based on consumer and travel trade survey data collected and published by Dragontrail over the past couple of years. Let's start with the inspiration around outbound travel destinations. Our survey results from April 2025 show that Chinese social media apps are the most important source of destination inspiration chosen by half of our surveyed travelers. 39% of Chinese outbound travelers got inspiration from their friends, family, and acquaintances, and another 30% were inspired by Chinese online travel agencies such as Ctrip, which is China's largest OTA. To have a deeper understanding of the impact of social media content, we asked respondents in our survey this spring about which outbound destinations they were most inspired to visit on social media and why they were attracted to these destinations. A wide range of destinations came up in their responses, with the Maldives being the most frequently mentioned. Chinese travelers were most attracted to its natural scenery, including the quiet islands and clear seawater. More distant destinations, such as Iceland, New Zealand, and Switzerland, also inspired Chinese visitors to visit for their unique landscapes. Leisure and enjoyment are another major draw, featuring gourmet and shopping experiences and urban leisure in destinations such as South Korea and Thailand. Survey respondents also mentioned destinations that have distinct cultural appeal, such as Japan, Russia, Italy, and Egypt. Content highlighting practical considerations and travel convenience, such as visa-free policies, perceived safety in stable environments, barrier-free communication, proximity to China, as well as well-developed infrastructure and cost efficiency, all gives Chinese tourists a strong sense of assurance and increases their intent to visit. Now, when searching for information and planning their trips, RedNote has consistently been the top source of destination information among Chinese travelers in our recent surveys. This spring, the platform was chosen by 53% of respondents, followed by Douyin with 48%, and online travel platforms such as Ctrip with 42%. But there is a generational divide when it comes to destination information sources. Social media platforms such as RedNote and Douyin are used more widely by younger travelers, and online travel platforms, recommendations by friends and family, WeChat, and travel agencies and tour guides are all more influential among older travelers. Now we're going to look a little bit more at a couple of niche demographics, starting with older travelers, age 60 and up. So this silver traveler market is a relatively small segment of the Chinese outbound tourism market, but it is particularly relevant to long-haul destinations, and it stands out as a coveted market because it's growing, and these senior travelers have much more flexibility around their trip timings as well as more disposable income. Chinese silver consumers are also digitally active. As of June 2025, China had 161 million silver netizens aged 60 and above, equivalent to 1 in every 2 seniors embracing digital life. This January, Dragon Trail conducted bespoke research for Tourism New Zealand about the silver travel market, including an offline survey in Shanghai of a travel club for retirees. The results of the survey showed that offline and online channels were equally important for Chinese silver travelers, with travel agency stores, word of mouth from friends and family, WeChat, and travel platforms such as Ctrip being the most influential channels. Notably, WeChat and WeChat channels were much more influential within this older demographic than newer and trendier platforms like RedNote and Douyin. We've also recently published new research on China's luxury travel sector, including surveys of Chinese high net worth individuals, luxury travel agents, and luxury hospitality suppliers. 1/3 of luxury travel agents in Greater China identified social media influencers as the most effective way to influence their clients' travel decisions, second only to word of mouth recommendations. Social media was endorsed even more strongly by luxury hospitality partners, with more than half saying it's the most effective way to reach Chinese high net worth individuals. RedNote and WeChat stand out as the 2 most important Chinese social media platforms for the luxury market, with industry experts stressing that a social media market strategy for this market must focus on storytelling and emotional resonance over overt promotion. One important thing to understand about the Chinese outbound tourism market is that they don't tend to plan and book their trips too far in advance. 37% of Chinese outbound travelers start planning their trip 1 month in advance, with only 9% of survey respondents saying they start searching for destination-related information more than 3 months before their trip. Our recent research into the luxury travel market showed a very similar pattern. So this is something to keep in mind when you're considering marketing campaigns and content planning. Chinese online booking platforms such as Ctrip and Qunar have repeatedly been selected as the most common channel for booking outbound travel in Dragon Trail surveys. In our most recent consumer survey, they were chosen by 63% of respondents who had traveled outside of mainland China in the past, saying they usually book outbound travel through these channels. Official channels of airlines, hotels, and attractions are the next most popular outbound travel booking channel, chosen by half of Chinese outbound travelers. And international booking platforms ranked third, selected by 39% of respondents. This includes things like Airbnb, and they're more frequently used by travelers aged 18 to 24, with 47% of this age group choosing them. Social media platforms such as WeChat, Rednote, and Douyin also have a substantial impact on outbound travel bookings, with 38% of respondents booking through these channels. Online and offline channels of traditional travel agencies are more preferred by respondents aged 45 to 65, with 49% and 25% of this age group choosing them, respectively. Although consumers do prefer OTAs for travel booking, it's going to be important to watch what happens with booking on social media in the coming years. Social media platforms, particularly Rednote right now, are adding new features to make it easier to buy and book directly from the app. And at the same time, travel agents are diversifying the way they sell their products and getting good results from social media platforms. In our January 2025 survey of Chinese travel agents who sell outbound travel, nearly half of survey respondents had embraced new social media platforms, Douyin and Rednote for travel sales, and conversion rates on these platforms were above average. WeChat groups and WeChat personal accounts were also identified as offering good conversion rates. Now, turning to what Chinese travelers do once they're in the travel destination, they're likely to continue using Rednote on the go to find guides and recommendations, as well as review app Dianping and WeChat mini programs. They're also increasingly likely to be using Chinese mobile payment platforms, as these are accepted in more countries and by more businesses overseas. In China, most people haven't paid for things using cash for years, and instead payments are usually made through their smartphones, and most of these transactions are made either using Alipay or WeChat Pay. Chinese travelers also prefer to keep using these payment platforms overseas for convenience and security. In Dragon Trail's 2024 consumer survey, we found that more than half of outbound travelers had used Alipay on past outbound trips, and it ranked nearly as high as cash and China Union Pay card payments. 35% had used WeChat Pay overseas in the past. At the same time, Chinese travelers will also be sharing their trips with their peers. We found that 94% of surveyed Chinese outbound travelers have the habit of sharing their travel experiences online, with 80% of these sharing while they're still traveling. Most share more than one post during their trip, with 34% of survey respondents sharing their experiences every day while traveling. The top 3 platforms for sharing are WeChat Moments, which is the social media feed part of WeChat, followed by Rednote and Douyin. The travel stories and guides that travelers share on social media then become inspiration, as well as useful references for others in and beyond their own networks, and the cycle begins again. So now let's move on to a review of China's most important digital platforms for travel, including social media, OTAs, travel review platforms, and more. We'll start with WeChat. This is China's super app. It's used by approximately 78% of people aged 16 to 64 in China. WeChat accounts for 35% of all mobile usage time in China, making it the country's most used app. And users spend an average of more than 80 minutes a day on the platform. WeChat remains the dominant social platform in China because it offers so many different functionalities, and it's always developing new ones in order to stay competitive, such as WeChat channels for videos and WeChat Pay. The chat function is also WeChat's foundation, and this is how people communicate with their friends, family, and colleagues, and that is not something that's likely to change. Also known as the Swiss Army knife app, WeChat includes all of these functionalities and tools. Chat, search, WeChat Moments, which is the social media feed, WeCom, which is used for work purposes. Brands like tourism destinations and businesses can open official or service accounts and create mini programs, which are like light apps within WeChat. There's also WeChat channels for videos, and there are a number of other functionalities, of which the most important is WeChat Pay. Now, I want to share some updates about how tourism brands can open their own accounts on WeChat, because we've seen a few really big changes in this area as recently as this spring. So previously, around 9 or 10 years ago, overseas tourism brands opening accounts on WeChat had a choice about whether they wanted to open a subscription account, which WeChat now calls official accounts and are more oriented towards publishing content, or a service account. At that time, most destination tourism boards would open a subscription account, and then brands providing services such as hotels or airlines would open a service account. Subscription accounts could post daily, whereas service accounts were limited to 4 posts per month, or 4 times posting per month, rather. And subscription account content all went into one folder on users' chat feed, with service account articles showing up as individual chat notifications from the brand account. The first change to happen, and this was already a number of years ago, is that the rules changed so that now any account without a Chinese business license can only open a service account. There is a possibility that brands can get their Chinese marketing agency to open an account on their behalf. And then in this context, maybe get a subscription or an official account. But at Dragon Trail, we've seen just too many disputes between clients and agencies over account ownership when we've taken over the management of WeChat accounts from other agencies. So when we open and verify new WeChat accounts on behalf of our clients, we always do this using the client's own business license so that they always have sole ownership of that account, even though we're managing the WeChat account at that time. So basically, from this point forward, all new WeChat accounts for any overseas tourism brands have been service accounts. This spring, WeChat made another major change in that service accounts can now post just as often as subscription/official accounts. And this content now all goes into a service accounts folder in the user's chat feed. So on one hand, it allows brands to post more, but on the other hand, the content isn't promoted quite so directly as it was before. So it's important at this point not to think of WeChat service accounts as a channel for inspiration where users will be scrolling and come across your content. And instead, it's more about making your WeChat account an official, trustworthy resource library where users looking for information about your brand or destination will be able to easily find it. They'll be able to find it through customizable menu bars on your account, like this example from the Polish Tourism Board, where users can find articles on 5 Polish cities and 5 discovery themes, such as Polish experiences, for example, as well as links to B2B content for travel agents and Poland's WeChat mini program. Another thing to remember about content discovery is that WeChat is now one of China's leading search engines. And this is where your brand account and content will show up for users that are specifically looking for information on that topic. We suggest that overseas tourism brands use their WeChat accounts to publish really in-depth, useful, and evergreen content, building up a library of articles to help Chinese travelers to learn about you and include you in their travel plans. A WeChat brand account also offers visitors a way of contacting you directly, and the account can be set up with automated replies to guide visitors to the content they're looking for. Alongside a service account, we would encourage brands to open a WeChat channels account for videos. This will be linked to but separate from your service account, and the content on WeChat channels is much more easily discoverable with the potential to go viral. So this is when you're more likely to capture users in the inspiration stage. Since 2017, Dragon Trail has been regularly tracking the performance of international tourism brands on WeChat, publishing quarterly and annual rankings reports for tourism boards, airlines, airports, cruise lines, attractions, hotels, and car rental companies. We also started tracking Weibo accounts in 2019 and RedNote accounts from 2023. So far in 2026, some of the content themes and strategies we've seen attract higher reading rates on WeChat include holiday information for New Year and Chinese New Year, as well as digital red envelopes, which are always big on WeChat at Chinese New Year. We've also seen some brands generate engagement by tapping into viral themes, such as the Hong Kong Tourism Board working with a Chinese street food vendor nicknamed Chicken Cutlet Brother, who went viral in China last year. Or London's Victoria and Albert Museum adding a Labubu to their collection and writing an article about the process for doing that. We also see strong interest in useful information like recommendations for off the beaten track destinations and guides to taking public transportation, as well as practical information about visa policies for Chinese tourists. Weibo is one of China's oldest social media, and it hasn't added so many new functionalities like the other apps lately, but it remains a good place for viral content and communicating in an open space. Brands can use Weibo to raise awareness and boost their visitor numbers using strategies like giveaways, hashtags, and working with influencers. It's a good place to have an open dialogue with users, and Weibo itself also organizes travel-themed campaigns throughout the year where they can help to drive exposure to your content and account. We recommend posting 3 or 4 times a week, including reposting positive user-generated content about your brand and posting during peak commuting times in the morning and evening, as well as after meals on weekdays. In terms of content trends, travel marketing on Weibo is definitely driven by celebrities and their followers on the platform. For example, last year, the Abu Dhabi Tourism Board made actress Liu Yifei their official brand ambassador. You can see her in the picture on the right here. And they shared lots of short videos with her experiencing traditional culture and contemporary attractions in Abu Dhabi. This significantly raised awareness about Abu Dhabi as a travel destination, and it was a key factor behind surging Chinese visitor numbers to the Emirate in 2025. In 2026, the Canadian Tourism Board has shot up the Weibo rankings for its partnership with CN Traveler magazine and actor Yang Yang, which you can see on the left here. They have been posting photos and videos of the actor shot in Canada, as well as information about offline promotional events held in China. Chinese athletes also generate a lot of engagement. This year, the German Tourism Board has been posting about a famous Chinese table tennis player who is currently playing for a German club. And Turkish Airlines has partnered with a Chinese tennis star as their official brand ambassador. Related to these celebrity tie-ins, we also see a lot of engagement on Weibo for posts relating to Chinese TV shows and movies. For example, popular travel shows like Divas Hit the Road. Tourism boards also have a good opportunity for marketing if the destination is hosting any music concerts with popular pop stars, especially if those pop stars are Chinese. We also see tourism accounts consistently generating good engagement for giveaways, and video content also performs really well on Weibo. Now, the biggest development in Chinese social media for tourism over the past 5 years has been the rise of RedNote, or Xiaohongshu, which is also known as Little Red Book or simply Red. It's been around since 2013, but its popularity for sharing and searching for travel content surged from 2020 onwards. The app has seen incredible growth in user numbers from just 30 million in April 2018 to 300 million at the end of December 2023. And the growth of its relevance for travel shows no sign of slowing down. By the time of China's reopening for international travel in 2023, Dragon Trail Research found that RedNote was well ahead of other social media platforms as a source of travel information for planning an outbound trip, and its popularity has only continued to grow since then. So one of the things that's driving RedNote's growth and its use for travel is that it boasts a really good search function with 600 million searches a day, as I mentioned earlier. New to the app are advertising and e-commerce functions for travel brands, including its own mini programs, which some overseas travel brands are starting to use for in-app bookings. In addition to its strong search function, another thing that makes RedNote popular and has always been key to its success is that the majority of content on the app is user-generated, and this makes it feel authentic and trustworthy. The platform is most popular with younger, affluent women in first-year Chinese cities, and this is also, of course, the core demographic for outbound travel. Whereas in 2018, there were no international tourism brands with accounts on Xiaohongshu, now opening an official account is increasingly something that destinations and businesses want to do, in addition to influencer marketing, which is also still a good way to market on this platform. Overseas travel brands that joined RedNote in 2025 include the tourism boards of Malaysia, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Oman, and Ras Al Khaimah, just to name a handful. Looking at the most successful tourism marketing content on RedNote over the last year, there are some similarities to other platforms, in addition to some themes that seem to work especially well on RedNote. Similar to WeChat and Weibo, partnerships and content with celebrities is popular, as well as posts about music, concerts, and giveaways. Chinese travelers are using RedNote to find practical trip planning information, and we've seen that even videos featuring celebrity brand ambassadors might offer detailed itinerary suggestions. In the first quarter of 2026, the post by a cruise brand that received the most engagement on RedNote was a video about how to dress in layers for Antarctic expeditions by Hurtigruten, which you can see on the left. This is much more interesting and useful content for RedNote users than a sales promotion would be. I already discussed the trend towards raw, authentic, unpolished content, and this is something that we see most clearly on RedNote as a platform. And finally, one last trend is the rise of gaming collaborations and aesthetics. In 2025, the Swiss National Tourist Office announced its collaboration with The King's Avatar. This is a TV series that's based on an online novel about a multiplayer online video game. In 2025, Switzerland Tourism held a related event at the Swiss National Museum in Zurich, and they featured the King's Avatar installations at major landmarks in Zurich, Lucerne, and other Swiss destinations, including fans to visit, take photos, and share their experiences online. And you can see an image of that here. Visit Britain has also seen significant success on RedNote in the past 2 years, thanks to a collaboration with the Chinese mobile game Love in Deep Space and the special British Experience Seekers edition of the game. RedNote currently has 2 platforms for finding and working with influencers. The first is called Pugonging, and this means dandelion. It's a tool to search for and contact influencers with 1,000 or more followers to invite them on fam trips or otherwise commission them to create content for you. And this is RedNote's main influencer platform. The second platform is through RedNote's new Creator Hub, and you can think of it as a light version of Pugonging for finding users with fewer than 1,000 followers who have already posted content about your brand. So this is how you find user-generated content posts mentioning your brand keywords, and then you can contact those creators directly, and you can also pay to boost those posts if you like the content and want even more people to see it. So it helps you to find very small scale KOCs who are already promoting your brand and then amplify this content even more. You can also talk to the creator about collaborating further, perhaps by telling them that you're going to pay to boost the post, and would they also be interested to add a comment on their post with a call to action sales link, like we did here with Tourism Events Queensland to promote a new Brisbane flight on China Southern Airlines. This UGC boosting campaign was run alongside another KOL and KOC campaign, as well as promotional posts from the Queensland Tourism Board's own account. And we actually found that the UGC part of the campaign delivered some of the best results for click-through rates, cost per engagement, and cost per click. Another RedNote case study is this campaign that Dragon Trail ran for Disneyland Resort California, designed not just to increase exposure, but also directly drive ticket sales for on different Chinese OTAs. We found and provided information to 100 KOCs, focusing on lifestyle and family bloggers to publish travel guides to Disneyland with posts that included practical information about how to buy tickets and links to ticket sales pages on Ctrip, Fliggy, KKday, and Klook. The campaign surpassed the exposure KPI by 2 million, and maybe more importantly, in terms of sales, the minimum year-on-year increase among those 4 OTAs was 16%, with 2 of the OTAs getting more than double the previous year's admission ticket sales. This is a great example of effectively marketing on RedNote by working with large numbers of KOCs rather than a smaller number of KOLs or celebrities in order to work with the RedNote algorithm that favors high quality, relevant, and useful content. Now I want to introduce one video platform. There are others, but Douyin is the most important for travel, inspiration, and information, with more than 400 million users interested in travel. Douyin has seen a post-pandemic surge in travel-related content and accounts, travel-related searches, and in-app purchases of travel products. However, we still wouldn't recommend opening an account here because it's not so common still among overseas travel brands to do so. although we do definitely recommend creating and sharing B2C video content on the other platforms and working with influencers who are active on Douyin. Douyin is the original version of TikTok, but it's the one that's available to App Store users in China. You would need a VPN and a Chinese App Store account to even download it outside of China, which is quite inconvenient, since the owning company ByteDance really wants all users outside of China to be using TikTok and all users inside of China to be using Douyin, and there's no content shared between those two platforms. Now, moving on from social media, I'd like to talk a little bit about China's online travel market, since this is where most of China's outbound travel bookings are made now, and online travel agencies, or OTAs, are also a leading source of travel inspiration and information, as we saw from the survey data earlier. Most important among China's OTAs for outbound travel is Ctrip, which is owned by the Trip.com group. The Trip.com group also owns Qunar, which is China's second largest OTA. Qunar is slightly more domestically focused than Ctrip is, but it also has overseas travel products. There's also Tuniu, which is focused mainly on group travel, especially for long-haul outbound destinations. Tongcheng is owned by WeChat parent company Tencent, and it's integrated into WeChat for travel bookings. Fliggy is owned by the Alibaba Group, and it's more of a travel marketplace than a traditional OTA, with travel brands such as airlines and hotels running their own shops in the style of an e-commerce platform. Lastly, Meituan is part of the same company that runs the review app Dianping, which we'll look at later on, and it's strongest with overseas hotel bookings, dining, and attraction tickets. The Trip.com group, including Ctrip and Qunar, accounts for nearly half of the online outbound travel market. For group travel, Trip.com group is even more dominant, accounting for more than 60% of the market. Ranked second, Fliggy has grown to almost 1/3 of the outbound travel market share, and it's the market leader for young travelers and independent travelers. Overseas tourism businesses can list their products on these platforms, and there are lots of advertising options as well, although these can be quite expensive. Travel review websites and apps are popular among Chinese outbound travelers for researching destinations, sharing travel experiences, and even booking trips. They are used particularly by FITs, fully independent travelers, and dominated by millennials born in the 1980s and 90s, who make up around half of all Chinese outbound travelers. Travelers will often visit these websites for research or inspiration when looking for information about a destination or making a decision between destinations. The two biggest Chinese travel review websites are Chongyou, QYER.com, and Mafangguo. Users on both of these sites can review attractions, and Chongyou offers free downloads of professionally written Chinese language guidebooks. Users can also post their travel diaries and photos, and travel review sites also function to some extent as OTAs, with users able to book travel packages, tours, and hotels. Travel brands can work with both Chongyou and Mafangguo to do promotions, including KOL content, sponsored content, and display ads. Next, we have Dianping, which I mentioned a bit earlier. This is a really useful app that's used especially for finding and reviewing local restaurants, but it's also used for other businesses like shops, attractions, and hotels. It's especially popular with millennials in first-year Chinese cities, and users can also book hotels directly through Dianping, and there are listings for an expanding list of cities all around the world. Dianping is used by around 1/3 of outbound travelers when planning their trips. It has different interfaces, slightly different interfaces for domestic and international listings, as you can see here. The international section of the Dianping app also includes lots of venues and reviews, but it's slightly more focused on tourism and destination promotion and discovery. Tourism brands can use review platforms like Dianping, Mafangguo, and Chongyou to learn more about the Chinese traveler's experience in the destination and get honest feedback about their experience. For businesses, particularly restaurants, they can market themselves on Dianping by working to make their listing look nice with professional photos and accurate information, working with influencers, encouraging user-generated content, offering coupons, and joining Dianping promotions. Now, in this last section of the presentation, I'd like to give an update on how AI is currently being used by Chinese travelers and the Chinese travel industry. By last year, all of China's leading OTAs had introduced their own AI tools, including itinerary planners, local area guides, and menu translation tools. This year, there's a new shift towards agentic AI. Just before Chinese New Year in February, Chinese internet giants Alibaba and ByteDance both launched upgrades to their chatbots that allowed them to perform tasks on behalf of users, such as ordering a meal or a coffee, or buying a plane ticket. Chinese AI companies handed out coupons worth 1.2 billion US dollars to consumers to encourage them to download and use these applications and their agentic functions. Related to this is Alibaba's travel platform, Fliggy's AI interface is now able to process travel bookings, and during the Chinese New Year period, Fliggy's overall AI orders increased by 800%, with attraction ticket bookings proving the most popular use case. In both our September 2024 and September 2025 consumer surveys, we asked Chinese travelers about their attitudes on AI for travel, and we found that attitudes shifted considerably from one year to the next. The percentage of travelers who said they considered AI travel assistance as not useful enough dropped from 51% to just 14% in September 2025. Meanwhile, 37% of travelers said they were optimistic about the future of AI travel assistance, up from just 5% the year before. 10% said AI had already improved their outbound trips in 2025, which is double the percentage in 2024. Language translation is the #1 area where Chinese travelers think AI can most optimize their travel experience, followed by itinerary planning and bookings for trains, hotels, and restaurants. According to the China Tourism Academy, 70% of Chinese travelers currently use AI to plan their trips, and they're using a wide range of AI platforms and tools. Large language models are the most widely adopted AI tools for travel. 64% of respondents in Dragontrail's survey last September said they had used DeepSeek, and 63% had used Doubao for trip planning. AI assistants from the Trip.com group had already been used by 51% of Chinese travelers, and as a key platform for travel inspiration and planning, RedNote's AI function had also been used by 45% of surveyed travelers. The Chinese travel industry has also adopted AI very rapidly, and 82% of respondents in last summer's travel trade survey said their companies were already using AI technology for business. We'll have updated research to share on how the Chinese travel trade is using AI in 2026, available next month in our July webinar. While much of the AI development in China's travel industry has been consumer-facing, it's very clear from our survey that there's huge potential to use AI as a B2B tool, and this is largely how we've been using it in our own work. Last year, we developed our own AI platform called the Trip Builder Pro. This is a tool that travel agents can use to generate highly personalized travel itineraries in just a few minutes, powered by Destination Tourism Board's own POI databases. And this can be integrated into larger travel trade marketing hubs that are available to travel agents. We've also been using AI for translation and interpretation at B2B events, including China roadshows for the Georgian National Tourism Administration, Egyptian Tourism Authority, and Tourism New Zealand. AI is also incredibly helpful in video production to review raw footage and assemble polished highlight reels in minutes rather than days. Paired with tourism brands' already available content, AI can also quickly generate training course materials and quizzes for use by the travel trade. We've also been building AI reporting dashboards to help our clients to track brand reputation on Chinese social media and get detailed insights on the performance of their ad campaigns across multiple platforms, along with suggestions and action plans about the steps these brands should take next to respond to customer feedback and optimize campaigns going forward. Now, we know that GEO, Generative Engine Optimization, or SEO for AI, is top of mind for many brands these days. And this is why we've developed a new auditing tool for Chinese websites, which is based on Chinese GEO theory. We're able to offer complimentary audit reports to assess GEO readiness, tech issues, and suggestions for content optimization for Chinese websites. So please do get in touch with us directly after the webinar if this is something you'd like to carry out for your own Chinese website. And finally, we've also just launched an AI-powered KOL database with smart tagging of hundreds of travel KOL profiles with data including their reach and audience, areas of expertise, global travel experience, active platforms, cost, and other details. Clients can specify exactly what their goals are for influencer marketing and then get a detailed campaign plan and suggested KOL profiles to consider. So that brings me to the end of today's webinar. I will be sharing today's presentation slides with all attendees, and you can also find all of our past consumer and trade surveys and our white papers available to download for free from the Dragon Trail website, from the resources section of the website, alongside videos of our past webinars, Chinese social media rankings for international tourism brands, marketing case studies and guides, and much more. You can sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already for monthly updates and future webinar invitations, and follow us on LinkedIn or WeChat. Our next webinar is coming up on Wednesday, the 29th of July, and this will be your first chance to see the results of our new survey of Chinese travel agents. We'll be reviewing how the Chinese travel trade is using AI, what trends stand out for summer travel in 2026, how international destination preferences are shifting, and more. You can find more information about the webinar and register on the events section of the Dragon Trail website. And you'll also receive the registration link later today. So now I'm ready to take your questions. I know that a number of those have already come in already. I need to take just a minute to read them, and you can send in any more that you have using the Q&A button on your Zoom control panel.